All right, let's jump right in and get ready to explore the world of aquaculture. Today, we're going to help you prep for a big interview. We're talking about the Aquaculture Hatchery technician position, and we're going to be tackling some real sample questions. We'll explore how to make those answers really stand out.
Yeah, and we're using some really cool resources from RoleCatcher. They have this awesome platform. It's designed to help people figure out their careers. You can think of it like your own AI career coach in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. So before we get into the questions, I think it would be good to kind of paint a picture. What does an aquaculture hatchery technician actually do? It's a pretty big deal these days, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with demand for seafood just going up and up, and the pressure on those wild fish stocks, hatchery technicians are becoming so vital. I mean, they're the ones that ensure a steady supply of healthy fish. They play a key role in all this sustainable seafood production.
So let's say you're in that interview, you're sitting in the hot seat. One of the first questions you might get is, can you tell us about your experience working with aquatic species?
Right. And this is your time to really showcase any relevant experience that you have. Don't just list things off, though. Explain what you learned from those experiences.
Right, so like if you volunteered at an aquarium, don't just say, I clean tanks. Talk about how you gained experience with water quality testing, or how you learned to recognize signs of stress in different species of fish.
Exactly. And the RoleCatcher Guide really emphasizes that hands-on experience. Even outside of a traditional hatchery, it can be so valuable. They even suggest highlighting things like if you maintain a home aquarium, or if you've participated in citizen science projects that involve aquatic species.
That's a really good point. Now, let's say the interviewer follows up with, what specific experience do you have with hatchery operations?
Yeah.
How would you approach that one?
All right, well, this is your chance to get really specific. If you've actually worked in a hatchery before, describe the types of fish you've worked with. You know the tasks you performed and the equipment that you used. Did you help with water quality management or breeding programs or record keeping? Detail is key here.
What if you haven't had any direct hatchery experience, though?
Well, that's where transferable skills really come in. Maybe you've worked in a lab setting. You have experience maintaining those precise environments, or following strict protocols or collecting and analyzing data. Those skills are all super relevant to hatchery work.
And RoleCatcher has this really cool feature. It uses AI to analyze job descriptions, and then it suggests relevant skills and keywords to include on your resume, and also your interview answers.
Oh, that's right. It really helps you tailor those responses to highlight the skills that are most important to that specific hatchery you're applying to.
Okay, now let's tackle a question about fish health. Imagine the interviewer says, how do you ensure the health and welfare of fish in a hatchery setting?
Right. So this is all about demonstrating your proactive approach to fish care. You can mention, your understanding of water quality parameters and disease prevention strategies and the importance of providing proper nutrition.
And it's also a good opportunity to highlight your knowledge of those biosecurity protocols, right?
Oh, absolutely. You can talk about things like disinfection procedures and quarantine measures for new fish, and even visitor policies to prevent the introduction of pathogens. Show them that you understand how important it is to minimize the risks to fish health.
Speaking of biosecurity, what if an interviewer just straight up asks you, how do you ensure biosecurity in a hatchery setting? What specific examples could you give?
Well, you could talk about how you would ensure all the equipment is thoroughly disinfected between uses, or how you would implement a really strict quarantine protocol, for any new fish arriving at the hatchery. Maybe you even learned about some specific biosecurity measures during a course or a workshop. Those are definitely things worth mentioning.
Yeah, I really like how the RoleCatcher Guide emphasizes how important it is to stay up to date on industry trends. They suggest reading industry journals, attending conferences, even taking online courses to keep your knowledge sharp.
Right. Continuously learning shows them your commitment to the field and that you're eager to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay, let's move on to a question that might be a little bit more challenging. Imagine they ask you, can you describe your experience with fish spawning and egg incubation?
Yeah. So here you want to be honest about your experience level. If you've actually had hands-on experience, describe the specific techniques you've used and the types of fish that you've worked with.
What if you haven't had any direct experience with spawning or incubation? Should you just say, I haven't done that?
You don't necessarily have to say that. You can talk about any relevant coursework or research you've done. Maybe you've studied, different incubation systems or the environmental conditions that are necessary for successful egg development. Show them that you have a basic understanding of the process and a willingness to learn.
That's a good tip. RoleCatcher also has this really cool interview practice feature. You can practice answering questions and get AI-powered feedback on your responses. It's kind of like having a virtual coach to help you refine your delivery and content.
Oh, it's a fantastic tool. It can even give you feedback on your body language, remind you to make eye contact and smile and project confidence.
Now, another question you might get is, can you describe your experience with water quality management in a hatchery?
Ah,
How would you tackle this one?
okay. Well, this is where you can really shine if you have a strong understanding of water chemistry. Talk about the different water quality parameters that you're familiar with, like pH and temperature dissolved oxygen, ammonia, and nitrate levels.
Right, and don't forget to mention those tools and techniques. You know, the ones you've used to actually monitor and adjust these parameters.
Absolutely. Have you used water testing kits, filtration systems, or aeration equipment? Being specific about your experience shows the interviewer that you have that practical knowledge of water quality management.
And if you've ever had to troubleshoot a water quality problem, this is a great place to share that story. Explain the steps you took to identify and resolve the issue. It shows off those problem-solving skills.
Exactly. And remember, even if you haven't worked in a hatchery before, you can still relate your experiences to this role. Maybe you've maintained a complex aquarium system or conducted water quality testing for a research project.
Okay, let's tackle one more question before we move on. Imagine the interviewer asks, how do you ensure the genetic diversity of fish populations in a hatchery?
All right, so this question is all about understanding the importance of maintaining healthy and resilient fish populations. You want to show off your knowledge of breeding programs and how they help to preserve genetic diversity.
So, for example, you could mention techniques like selective breeding or outbreeding, or even the use of genetic markers to track and manage genetic variation.
Exactly. Show them you understand the long-term implications of genetic diversity and how hatchery practices can impact the health and sustainability of those fish populations. And we're back, diving even deeper into those aquaculture hatchery technician interview questions, getting you ready for success.
Exactly. In part one, we covered some of the basics. But now let's get into some of the more challenging stuff, like, can you describe your experience with disease diagnosis and treatment in fish? That one sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, it can be, but it's a super crucial part of managing a hatchery. So if you've had any experience in this area, describe, the types of fish diseases you've encountered, the diagnostic techniques that you've used, the treatment options you're familiar with.
And, don't forget prevention is key.
Oh, absolutely. You can highlight, your knowledge of biosecurity protocols and how you would implement those to minimize the risk of outbreaks. That's a huge concern for hatcheries.
Right? Showing that you're proactive about disease prevention is definitely going to impress the interviewer.
Mm.
Okay, here's another question that might pop up. How do you ensure compliance with regulatory requirements in a hatchery setting?
Right. So this question is all about showing off your professionalism and your understanding of the bigger picture. So talk about, your familiarity with any relevant environmental regulations and animal welfare standards.
So you could mention things like, specific permits or licenses that are required for hatchery operations, or your experience with record keeping and reporting.
Exactly. You got to show the interviewer that you understand how important compliance is and that you're committed to following the rules and, maintaining those high ethical standards.
Now, let's say the interviewer throws you a curveball and asks, can you describe a time when you had to troubleshoot a problem in a hatchery setting? How do you even approach a question like that?
Well, this is where you get to tell a story. Choose a specific example, one that's memorable, and showcases your problem-solving skills. So you want to describe the situation, the problem you encountered, the steps you took to diagnose and resolve it, and then, of course, the outcome.
So it's like the STAR method.
Yeah.
Situation, task, action, result.
Exactly. It's a great framework for structuring your answers. Keep it clear and concise, especially when you're telling a story.
And don't forget, RoleCatcher's interview practice feature can be super helpful for practicing these kinds of questions. You could record yourself answering, and the AI will give you feedback on like your delivery, your content, even your body language. It's like having a personal coach right there in your pocket.
It's pretty amazing. Okay, now let's shift gears a bit and talk about a question that often comes up at the end of an interview. Do you have any questions for us?
And this isn't just a formality. It's your chance to really show them that you're engaged, that you're genuinely interested in the position and the company.
Right. And the RoleCatcher Career Guide has some awesome tips on how to ask really insightful questions. They suggest focusing on things that demonstrate your interest in that specific role and the company's culture.
So instead of asking something really generic, like, what's the company's mission?
Mm-hmm.
Story. You can ask, what opportunities are there for professional development within the hatchery?
Mm-hmm.
Or what are the company's long-term goals for sustainable aquaculture?
Exactly. Those types of questions show that you've done your research and you're thinking about, your future with the company.
Okay, let's wrap up part 2 with a quick recap of some of those key insights from RoleCatcher. First, they emphasize how important it is to tailor your resume and your answers to that specific job description.
Right. And use their AI-powered CV resume builder. It can really help you identify the skills and keywords that are most relevant to that role.
And don't forget about their interview practice feature. It's a fantastic way to refine your answers, get feedback on your delivery, and just build your confidence overall.
Absolutely. Now, in part 3, we'll discuss some final tips and resources. To help you prepare for your aquaculture hatchery technician interview, we'll also explore some of the exciting trends happening in the aquaculture industry. So stay tuned.
And we're back for the final part of our deep dive, getting you ready to ace that aquaculture hatchery technician interview.
We've gone over some essential questions and those advanced techniques even how AI can help give you an edge.
But before we send you off to totally crush that interview, we do have a few more bonus tips. Think of these as the finishing touches to really make your application stand out.
One thing I think people sometimes forget is the importance of researching that company.
Oh, that's a really good point. It's not just about, prepping for the questions. It's about showing them that you've taken the time to learn about that specific hatchery.
Exactly. So look at their website, read any news articles about them, try to get a sense of their values, their goals, their culture.
And that research can help you come up with some really interesting questions, to ask the interviewer.
Right. And it's always good to have some good questions. Another tip is practice your elevator pitch.
You mean that like really concise summary? You know who you are, what you bring to the table.
Exactly. Being able to articulate that clearly and confidently right away makes a strong first impression. Shows you're self-aware and prepared.
Yeah, and it's a skill that's useful throughout your whole career, not just for interviews.
Speaking of first impressions, let's not forget the basics. Dress professionally.
Right, even if the hatchery environment is casual, showing up to the interview looking sharp shows respect. It shows professionalism.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up, I want to mention RoleCatcher again. Their platform has this section called Career Compass. It's dedicated to helping you explore all the different career paths in the aquaculture industry.
Oh, that's really cool. So even if this particular interview doesn't lead to a job, you'll be equipped to discover other cool opportunities.
Right, and they also have resources to guide you through getting certified, which can really boost your credibility and open up all kinds of new opportunities.
Yeah, remember those certifications we talked about?
Yeah.
The Aquaculture Technician Certification and the Hatchery Technician Certification. Those can really give you a competitive edge.
Okay, one final thought. Through this whole process, let your passion for aquaculture shine through.
Yeah, let them see that genuine interest.
It's contagious.
Exactly. Show the interviewer that you're not just looking for any job, that you're really excited about this job, about working with these aquatic species and contributing to that sustainable future.
That enthusiasm is what will make you stand out.
So that's it, your guide to acing that aquaculture hatchery technician interview.
We talked about all those essential questions, the advanced techniques, the power of using AI, and even some of those bonus tips.
We hope you feel ready to make a great impression.
So now it's your turn. Remember, preparation is key. Confidence is contagious, and passion is what sets you apart. Go make a splash.
As you embark on this journey, we'll leave you with this thought. What role do you see technology playing in the future of aquaculture? Something to think about.